For some reason, people have been asking me to cover She-Ra, Princess of Power, a 1980s cartoon about the female counterpart to He-Man. It wasn't a big hit with audiences and only lasted for 2 seasons, but it left its own impact on the world of animation. Today, I will be talking about this classic as we dive into... Hey, I'm recording in here. Yeah, I'm doing She-Ra, Princess of Power. I'm missing the word and. Well, what difference does the and make? Oh. I guess it does make a difference. Hello everybody, my name's Gale, and to be honest, I've never seen the original She-Ra cartoon. It's just way before my time. But television today can't let anything die, so, true to form, a reboot of the She-Ra series was created in 2018 on Netflix. And it typically has rave reviews. So what do I think? I think I am a complicated person, with complicated emotions, so I'm going to rant about it. Disclaimer, I am going to freely talk about all 5 seasons of She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, with the assumption you've seen the show as well. I will discuss character arcs and how the seasons end, along with many other topics. You have been warned. Season 1 starts off strong by introducing us to the world through the main protagonist, Adora. She's a strong character that is instantly likable. Adora takes us through an average day in the Horde, balancing the responsibility of introducing the show's world and conflicts, as well as setting up the show's premise. We're immediately drawn to 3 key relationships that will drive the show forward. Adora's relationship with Catra, both of the girls' relationships with Shadow Weaver, and the Horde's overall relationship with the rest of Etheria. Then, we get straight to the crux of the story, Adora finding the sword, becoming She-Ra, and joining the rebellion. For a first episode, or in this case 2 episodes, the show does a good job of setting up its main conflict, and the emotional stakes that will drive the actions of our main cast. The animation and voice work does the rest of the heavy lifting, conveying the potential for the show to really be great. The following episodes did not inspire the same confidence. The introduction of the side character cast are fine. Just fine. In fact, they are so just fine, one might be tempted to call them boring, and a waste of creativity. Everything just feels so cliche and overdone. The episodes feel less like story beats and more like obligatory tropes. And don't get me wrong, the hero finding out they're not on the side of good and having to redeem themselves by changing sides isn't wholly original either, but where Adora is an enjoyable character to follow regardless of that flaw, the other side characters just aren't. Take Perfuma's episode, for example. The episode boils down to the long, exhausted trope of hero gets an ego and promises to help everyone to keep the people's admiration until they inevitably fail from promising too much. It's been done a lot. And while we know what lesson Adora's gonna learn from the start, we don't have that same limitation with Perfuma. She could react to this situation in any number of ways that can establish her personality and inform us why she should join the rebellion. Maybe she fights against her people's tradition of waiting for people to save them. Maybe she tried to save her people and failed, so now she's an outcast and has to redeem herself. I don't know, I'm spitballing ideas here, but the point is that she has the most agency in this premise to make the cliche feel less obvious. Instead, the creators decide to go the obvious route. Town relies on Hero until Hero fails from too much pressure, and then the town gathers their courage to fight for themselves, thus leading to everyone learning the lesson. It's basic, it's boring, it doesn't do anything to get me to like Perfuma or want to know more about her. The other episodes feel similar in that they don't feel original either. There's the one about the senile old person who seems to know more than they let on. The one where the hero is right, but no one believes them because reasons. The one where two friends go to prom, but one goes with someone else, so the friendship is strained. This season is supposed to convince new watchers that this show has something new to offer, and it fails. Until the second half, when it starts to get really good again. Once Catra starts to get enough traction to plan her own attacks, the show picks up pace, and original and fun events start to happen. And that is going to be a theme of this review, so remember that. Glimmer and Bow get captured, and Adora and the other princesses need to team up to save them. Their first mission as the New Rebellion. And it succeeds. Kinda. They're able to save Bow and Glimmer, but at the cost of Entrapta, who they think is now dead. That's cool, that's fun, and engaging conflict that makes me interested in wanting to watch more. And the follow-up gets more and more dramatic with the dissolving of the rebellion. Glimmer's powers are on the fritz, Adora leaves to learn more about She-Ra, and Entrapta fully joins the Horde. It's a good escalation of tension and obstacles for our heroes to overcome, and it brings us to the Battle of Bright Moon. The Whispering Woods, the only thing preventing the Horde from attacking Bright Moon, is destroyed. The Horde's massive armies are coming. Catra is leading them and has incapacitated She-Ra. Glimmer still can't use her magic. All hope seems lost for our heroes. How will they get out? How will they overcome this tremendous force? How will they think their way? Yeah, it's friendship. The power of friendship. It kicks in and solves all their problems, leaving me utterly underwhelmed. I almost hate friendship. It's a cop-out for having to think about real solutions to the problems you present to an audience. It's almost like a product an infomercial would sell you as a cure-all to any household problem. Hey you! Yes, you! Have you found yourself in a situation where your villains are just too powerful? Are you backed into a corner where your heroes can't possibly win with strategy and tactics? Do you just want an excuse to use magic rainbow imagery without explaining anything? Well, I have the product for you. Introducing Friendship, the cure to any and all plot holes or inconveniences. This patented technology mixes the science of tropes with the mind-numbing effects of black and white ethics. Just spray it onto your script and watch it work in real time. Your work will go from a solid piece of fiction to a flimsy and easily moldable mass. Now your script is ready to be forced into whatever shape you want it to take. Feel good about your story's lesson with warm and fuzzy hits like, as long as we work together, we can conquer anything. Love is stronger than hate. Our bond can break through any mind control, and so much more. In fact, we know you'll be so happy with our product that we've added 2 more flavors for added variety. Now you can spice up your script with the power of love. Or, for an even more exotic twist, you can add Sacred Bond. Great for any animal sidekicks you need to shove importance onto. And the best part is that all this can be yours for the low, low price of 3 brain cells. That's right, that's a 17 brain cell value for only 3 brain cells.
To order, call 1-800-867-5309 and get your pack of all 3 Power Friendship diluents for 3 brain cells plus processing and handling. Side effects may include, but are not limited to, audience frustration, breaking of dramatic tension, diabetes, loss of character development, technical zombies, and death. Call 1-800-867-5309 to order your Friendship Pack today.
Season 2 sucked. I cared very little about anything our heroes did, I found most of the episodes boring and unremarkable, and the finale was frickin' meeting Bo's dads. Like, okay, don't get me wrong, they're good dads and all, but not finale-worthy material. I'm so grateful that I started watching the show when Season 3 was already out, because otherwise I would have dropped the show after this slogfest. So I'm not going to waste your time by telling you how obvious it is that you shouldn't make a season where your most dramatic moment happens in the 2nd episode. You know, for instance, learning that the friend you thought was dead is actually alive and now helping your enemies willingly. It would be stupid to have that happen so early and then follow it up with nothing, only to end the season with "my gay dads don't know I'm a fighter for the rebellion." Isn't that right, guys? Instead, I'm going to talk about the problem this season exacerbated the most. The fact that this ensemble show sucks at being an ensemble show. I love Adora. I love her personality, her curiosity, her reactions to the new experiences in her life, and her conflict within herself as she learns more about She-Ra. She has confidence and vulnerability, has emotions and brains. I couldn't ask for a better protagonist. I could write a whole video on how the writers make her feel like a genuine person without making her so infallible that she loses relatability. I love Adora. I merely tolerate all of her friends. Perfuma, Mermista, and Frosta bother me the most. I think it boils down to one shared trait that really pushes my buttons. They're practically pointless. Hi, FallenGale here. I realized that this whole section was actual garbage. I was saying things and rambling, but they weren't actually getting across my point. So I'm just going to get across my point here in more free-form form. And that is that these characters feel kind of arbitrary. They're given such importance in the intro. They have these gems that seem to be like they're actually important, you know, for the first couple seasons until they are important. But it has nothing to do with them as characters. They're just placeholders. You could put anyone as the ice character, or anyone as the water character, or anyone as the grass character, and nothing in the story changes because the characters themselves don't matter. They're pointless. Thank you for listening to the mid-rant in the rant. Enjoy the rest of the rant. Perfuma is the peace and friendship hippie character. Mermista is the aloof but secretly nerdy character. And Frosta is the prodigy who is also a literal child character. I honestly wish they kept the Frosta from Princess Prom. I liked that Frosta. That Frosta was different from every other princess because she was dead serious. But no, she's gotta actually be childish and kinda stupid like everyone else. They're all one-note characters with one-note problems that all end with some sort of speech teaching them a one-note lesson. Glimmer and Bow are better, but I still can't bring myself to like them all that much. Bow is fine, but that's it. I can't bring myself to think any more highly of him. He isn't written badly, he doesn't do anything awful, he's kind of funny, but that's it for me. I didn't find anything about him interesting, and that's probably because he wasn't allowed to have complex emotions until season 5, and he wasn't allowed because he was too busy being the reasoning voice for Glimmer. I hate Glimmer, but it's the kind of hate where you realize it's a bit unjustified because it's based on bias rather than the individual. I can't stand privileged characters complaining that their life is so hard because they have to live up to expectations. They always come off to me as bratty, like, oh no, I've got an angelic being for a mom and a powerful sorcerer for a dad, meaning I'll have immense power and I'm gonna have a kingdom to rule, but my mom's overbearing and my dad is dead. Oh, woe is me. Yeah, I'm never gonna relate to that, or think a character's brattiness is justified because of it. Also, I'm pretty sure every other character other than Bow has no living parents. Every emotional problem is so petty with her. She's a whole season where her unwillingness to believe that she can be wrong causes the worst evil in the universe to be able to find and attack their entire planet. She was power hungry, and sure, it may have been for selfless reasons, but she became so desperate for power that she trusted an even more power-hungry sorcerer for advice over her best friends, one of which was someone who would bear all the consequences should her plan go wrong. Truthfully, I don't think she's made a single smart decision on her own. She just cries a lot and then listens to someone before trying to pretend she knows what she's doing, and I can't stand that type of character. I hate that her powers are teleporting and something to do with sparkles and pink. I hate that she uses her status as royalty over her peers, even though they are also royalty. I hate how she acts like she's the only one who wants to end the war. But I'll admit that there were very few things the writers could have done to make me like her. So I'll accept if this one is just me. Now, all this negativity has a point, and that is that this show really only had enough emotional stakes for the main characters and the villains. There shouldn't have been such a focus on all these supporting characters without any real depth. If you don't have anything compelling for a character to do, and if you have no plans for how that character can grow, it might just be better to leave that character out. Teen Titans is a great example of an ensemble show that did it right. They focus on Robin for the most part, sure, but they give attention and detail to all their characters. There are episodes and arcs dedicated to Raven's demonic ancestry, emotional arcs for Beast Boy's affection for a traitor, Cyborg gets episodes dedicated to his feelings over the loss of his human body, and Starfire gets an arc in her homeworld where she gets to conquer her fears and insecurities in a racist system. But what's Mermista's story? What does Frosta gain from joining the rebellion? What does Perfuma learn from her new friends? And no, friendship is not a good enough answer. The answer I found is nothing. And I think that's in part because She-Ra has a goal, an endpoint for the story that Teen Titans didn't have. In an ensemble show, the story should be made to fit the growth of the characters, but in She-Ra, it feels like they had to fit the character's growth into an already established story. So instead of building episodes around the other princesses growing, they shoved those princesses into stories where they just needed more characters. The villains, on the other hand, Season 3 is where I started to really get into the show because it picks up and starts running with both the plot and interesting character conflict. Each episode is action-packed and drops some sort of bombshell. Hordak's going to open a portal that will bring a bigger threat to Etheria. Adora finds Mara's message about the dangers of said portal. Catra takes over the Waste and kidnaps Adora after learning Shadow Weaver left her for Adora again. Entrapta learns of the portal's destructive properties only to be zapped by Catra and sent to Beast Island. And it ends with the reality-shattering portal distorting the world into a functionally perfect but inherently flawed copy. It's a wild ride of constant escalation, and that's what makes it so good. No filler, no random stupid side quests derailing the pacing, no side characters taking up time with no progression, just a singular story that keeps upping the ante for our hero as she struggles to keep up. That's the good stuff, and it proves to me the show's greatest strength and its greatest weakness. While the hero's progress sometimes comes at the cost of their emotional complexity, the villain's progress really complements them. Catra drives her story. Nothing would happen if Catra didn't make it happen. It is her need to feel valued, her issues with abandonment, her obsession with beating Adora that makes the show happen. She is an active participant that pushes her own story forward, regardless of what anybody else wants. She is developed, thought out, complex, and such a great villain. The heroes, by contrast, only react, with little control over the narrative until the end of Season 4. They don't push the story forward with their character arcs have to find a way to fit within the story. It is this difference that makes it easy to see why every villain has more impact and more emotional depth than the heroic cast. It is also helped by the fact the villains are allowed to have complex problems with no clear answers. Listen to Glimmer talk about why she caused a problem and how she could have acted better.
I'm sorry I yelled. It's just, I guess you remind me of me. And I can do some really dangerous stuff sometimes.
I remind you of you?
Ugh, and I even sounded like my mom when I yelled at you. Please don't make me do that again.
Deal. Does that mean we're friends?
Yes.
It's pretty straightforward. Glimmer acted wrong. Here's what she should have done. Now we apologize and forgive. This allows for our heroes to be wrong, but also still have them be role models because they aren't really that bad. They remain squeaky clean for the kids. The villains, on the other hand, have much less cut and dry problems. Scorpia's arc as she tries to befriend someone who is emotionally closed off only to get hurt as she realizes that she's been giving to someone who is only interested in taking is deep. That's not an easy thing to deal with or solve. Her problem can't be fixed by a quick speech about friendship and an apology. It's only when Scorpia leaves that Catra even realizes she was doing something wrong in their friendship, and that in turn only makes Catra's abandonment issue stronger. And Catra's allowed to get worse before she gets better because she's the bad guy and she doesn't have to be perfect. In short, Catra, Scorpia, and Trapta, even Hordak to an extent, all have problems that take effort to solve and are fixed over time, with probably a lot of therapy. These issues make interesting conflict, addictive emotional moments that hit you in the heart, and allow for the characters to have real growth. But that fantastic storytelling comes with an unexpected cost, and that is by comparison, the good guys now look... Well, let's just say they look like a guy complaining about the common cold next to a hospital full of COVID patients. Scorpia is dealing with what it means to be a real friend, fighting her instinct to be loyal forever in order to question if she has real friends at all. And you feel for her, because that's something that's hurt a lot of people because they just want to be loved and to love in return. Then you look at Frosta's problem with friendship, the fact that she's a ruler, so therefore it's hard to make friends with her subjects, and you just can't bring the same level of care for that kind of problem. The villains' emotional arcs are just bigger in scale and built up over longer periods of time than the heroes, so we care about them more, and the heroes' problems less. The only exception is Adora, who does get long arcs of emotional turmoil that she has to overcome, but she's also the main character, so that is expected and required of her. This is not to say that the heroes' problems aren't real problems. They are, and no one should take this as a message that only deep and traumatic issues matter. I think that the supporting cast needed to deal with something deeper in order to show growth, and they never got that opportunity, and so they never got emotional complexity. One thing that doesn't really fit anywhere that I would like to briefly touch upon is the character designs. On the one hand, I love that no one has overly sexual magical girl armor, and most of their outfits show a consideration for the fact they're supposed to fight in them. I think the outfits are a little obvious, but I understand that while I don't personally like how on the nose some of the outfits are, identification is part of good character design. What I don't like as much is the wasted potential in making every princess a human girl. The show gives us such fun character designs in the form of the other Etherean races, the fish people, the goat people, the moth people, lizard and frog people, cat people, whatever Huntara is. I don't think it's bad character design, but I do feel it is a missed opportunity to really diversify the main cast. Not to mention that the entire villain cast is full of these non-human designs, and I love every one of their unique looks. It allows them to have distinctions in how they move, how they hold objects, how they fight, that really build up their personalities without even needing them to say a word. It is one of the show's major strengths that the animation gives these characters such diverse movements that play off their body types. It's sad that the heroes do not get the same level of personalization. To start off Season 4, I have to talk about how Season 3 ended. Or, more precisely, who ended in Season 3. I have to talk about the Queen's death. Queen Angela was never one of my favorite characters, but she wasn't awful. I think my problem boils down to her character being only one of two things. She was either the Queen or Glimmer's mom, and more often than not, she was Glimmer's mom. The show tries to convince us that this big war that encompasses the planet is dire enough to require several kingdoms to band together to fight it. Nothing up to Season 4 really supports that idea, though. No one gets hurt in a permanent way. We never see anyone other than the princesses fight. The princesses are able to just walk into the fright zone when necessary, and when the show starts, all the major kingdoms shown to us are intact. The show does nothing to establish how big or how dangerous the Horde really is because it hasn't shown the audience anything lost. That is, of course, except for Glimmer's dad, who is actually alive the entire time, and Entrapta, who is also actually alive the entire time and ends up enjoying her time in the Horde. Talking about how bad something is cheap. Action and visual storytelling is how you take what your characters talk about and make the audience feel it. The Death Star isn't dangerous because Obi-Wan says it is, it's dangerous because we watch it blow up a planet. Same thing with Voldemort. He who must not be named becomes a lot more threatening when he straight up kills a kid with no hesitation. We are told the Horde is dangerous, but we aren't really shown anything substantial until Angela's not death. And despite what it should add to the show, I have a problem with it. Angela serves one purpose, and that is to be a foil for Glimmer. She does nothing on her own. We don't see any part of what she does for the rebellion, other than call meetings, where she either argues with Glimmer or agrees to a plan she didn't have a hand in making. Her only job as a character is to establish Glimmer's flaws and strengths as a young princess who will inevitably become queen like Angela. Up until this point in the story, that's fine. Not great, but it is serviceable storytelling. I feel that her death is ultimately mishandled, though. For one, it serves as a moment of growth for Adora instead of Glimmer. I understand that Adora is She-Ra and our main protagonist, but Angela's whole purpose in this show revolved around Glimmer. She butted heads with Glimmer, she was scared for Glimmer, she believed in Glimmer, and sure, she felt protective emotions for Adora too, but they were on such a different scale. So for her last moments to be used as character growth for Adora instead of her daughter, I just don't agree with that choice. I'd have preferred this being a lesson to Glimmer about how sacrificing for the good of her people is a double-edged sword that a queen needs to be ready to use, or how about a lesson like she as a mother loves the best friend squad enough that she wants all of them to live and experience the future no matter the cost to herself. I don't know, I'm spitballing again, but the point is I strongly believe Angela's loss should have been a moment for Glimmer's character arc, not Adora's. I mean, look at how they show Glimmer handling the news. That's a really pathetic emotional moment for a character we've seen cry a lot more over a lot less. But beyond that, Angela's death creates a question that becomes the backbone of Season 4. What the heck does the Queen of Bright Moon do? On the one hand, that could be an interesting and introspective question that furthers Glimmer's character arc, and I think that's what the show writers were going for. My problem with it lies in their handling of Angela. They didn't show us what Angela really did for the rebellion, or as queen, so we don't know what she did right or wrong and what is now expected of Glimmer. I don't know what Angela was in charge of in Bright Moon. I don't know why Bright Moon needs to be the center of operations. I don't know why Glimmer needs to be the leader of the rebellion and in charge of every decision if they're literally a group comprised of different ruling elite. Who is even ruling their kingdoms while they're away? Do any of them worry about death and leaving their homes princessless? Does the magic of their gems go away forever if they have no heirs? What if one of them turned out to be a lesbian or had sons? And if entrapped as a princess, what is she a princess of? Does she just own a lot of land? What about Spinnerella and Natasha? Who are they? Where did they get their powers? So yes, Angela's death opens up a lot of questions about how this world functions. None of them are answered. For the entirety of Season 4, we just get told Glimmer has vague queen things to do. Actually, even that's too much credit. She just goes to a lot of nameless meetings. How important are those meetings? I don't know. When she tries to skip one to join a mission, I have no concept of how good or bad that decision is because that meeting could have been about a local puppy festival or developing a laser cannon that could have ended the war. And knowing that matters in this case because whatever being a queen is, it is apparently driving Glimmer up a frickin' wall. She's getting frustrated with something. I know she wants to be fighting with her friends, and that's a big motivator for her behavior, but I can only guess at what she's been occupied with instead, which is frustrating because this season's Glimmer becomes the literal worst character. Incredibly self-absorbed, petty, distrustful, desperate, and I don't get to see why. I just have to make up in my head what drove her to such extremes. But enough about Glimmer. Let's talk about the real star here. I love Double Trouble. They're my second favorite character in the show. They're such a fun and over-the-top personality that you can't help but smile when they're on screen. I mean, they're doing awful things to our heroes, but Glimmer is such a bummer that I rooted for whatever Double Trouble and Catra had planned. The show was at a perfect place for the heroes' fall, the time before the ultimate climax where the heroes are at their lowest and have lost almost everything, and Double Trouble helped make that depressing point so entertaining. The only thing I didn't like about them was when they turned on Catra, but that's because Catra's my favorite. This season is enjoyable because the writers don't hide Double Trouble as Flutterina. They make it very obvious with Double Trouble's introduction that they're going to do a traitor plot, and that transparency with the audience works in their favor. The idea of Flutterina being fake was obvious in her introductory episode, but it would have been painful if the writers had tried to convince us that no, she's really a good guy and totally not a turncoat. Even hinting at it but trying to be subtle would have been boring because, again, we know it isn't going to be any of the other princesses, so when the idea of a spy comes up, it's going to be obvious to even children. Instead, they roll with the fact the audience knows, and that lets them play with Double Trouble's personality, their relationship with Catra, and also means the inclusion of several funny scenes where Double Trouble has to work overtime because the Horde sucks at their job. They save Season 4, because they take the frustration of Glimmer and Adora's friendship breaking down and turn it into a spectacle. Had Double Trouble not been so fun, the first half of Season 4 would have been tough to get through. Please, for the love of God, never do a musical episode ever again. Oh my god, my ears are bleeding. Someone help me. I think I'm dying. After the discovery of Double Trouble in Mer Mysteries and Boys' Night Out, She-Ra returned to the tried and true method of constant escalation. And like Season 3, I loved it. Building up the lore of She-Ra and combining it with the future threat of the True Horde army created a feeling of a time crunch that pushed characters to their limits. Adora is horrified by this destiny she's forced into, Glimmer and the princesses are devastated as their homes are quickly being taken over now that the Horde has taken out Selenius, and even Catra is pushing herself and the Horde to their limits as she's desperate to have this all end with her on top. Everything is progressing, and 3 different sides are at play, which makes these episodes interesting because it's not just about good guys and bad guys, it's about how far they're willing to go to get what they want. Catra pushes everyone out of her life and is in a self-destructive spiral. Adora and Bo are going against Glimmer's orders to save Entrapta, and Glimmer is using Shadow Weaver and Double Trouble so that she can take the heart of Etheria for the princesses. All this is happening while, as the audience, we have no clear idea what the heart of Etheria will do either. If Glimmer gets it, the world ends, but if the world ends, there isn't a show, so maybe she's right and it will give her power instead? But Adora knows it's bad and she's our main protagonist, so she should be right and it's dangerous. And Catra doesn't even know about the heart's existence, so if she finds out, will she get a hold of it before the Horde? Everything is uncertain, and that makes for great television, and by the end, we get the worst possible ending for all of the involved parties. Glimmer starts the heart of Etheria only to realize it takes much more than it gives. Catra fights Hordak until both are beaten down, and then learns that Double Trouble betrayed her like everyone else. Adora is only able to stop the heart from firing by destroying She-Ra's sword, preventing her from transforming ever again. It truly is the lowest our characters have ever gotten, which is the perfect place to start their redemption arcs. Season 5 is unlike the rest of the show because all our old bad guys are now good guys, and a new bad guy takes their place as antagonist. I don't know how I feel about that. On the one hand, I love a good portion of the season as is. I love Glimmer and Catra's entire time on Horde Prime's ship. I love the conflict Adora faces with the failsafe. And I love Milog. On the other hand, this season feels like it has so much filler. And that simply isn't true. I looked afterwards at a synopsis of all the episodes in the last season, and they all contained some sort of progression. It's just that, for some reason, that progression felt like filler to me. As with all of this review, most everything is based on my opinion and how the show made me feel. That's why I didn't title it She-Ra Analysis, or The Objectively Best Take on She-Ra. I know that not everyone will feel the same way I do. This season is probably where that disconnect will be strongest. I think this season felt like filler because, to me, the best parts of She-Ra are when Adora is dealing with an interesting, complex emotional problem, or when the villains are on screen. I've said it a lot in this video, but the rest of the supporting cast just doesn't hold up well to me. So when the episodes start to rely on the support characters finally doing something impactful on their own for once, it's just too late. I barely tolerated 4 seasons of them not really doing much for the main plot. The not so happy feelings I have for them don't just disappear now that they're actually taking initiative for once. And then there's the fact that everyone is good now. Everyone. Even Hordak. Again, I'm conflicted because I do genuinely love everyone who spent time in the Horde. I don't think any of them are irredeemable. You know, except Hordak, the guy who made this mess in the first place. I want Scorpia, Entrapta, and Catra to be happy, but I also hate friendship saving the day. Entrapta is probably the easiest to let slide because she was kinda tricked into believing the other princesses left her behind on purpose. And they actually do have an episode dedicated to the feelings of everyone else as they deal with their feelings of betrayal. Scorpia's change is a bit more questionable, but still works well considering her character arc. There really isn't a reason for the princesses to treat Scorpia as well as they do when she comes to Bright Moon. Scorpia never denounces the Horde. She doesn't admit that she did awful things to the people of Etheria. She just realizes one of her friendships is toxic. The welcoming of Scorpia into the rebellion is a great storytelling beat for her character, having her finally find real friendships that are healthy, but it means we kinda have to ignore her part as force captain in the Horde. Like, it is possible she killed a kid or two, but that's okay, she gives great hugs. Hordak's redemption is less of a redemption and more of an emancipation, but like, being friends with Entrapta does not make waging a war with the express purpose of subjugating the people to your rule okay. Also, no sign of remorse, so like, screw him. And then there's Catra. Catra. I love Catra, she's my favorite, but she does some straight up horrible things in the 4 seasons where she functions as the main antagonist. We get to see how she feels when she's alone, how she struggled in the Horde when she felt pushed to keep going further and further despite knowing it would only lead to ruin. That makes her understandable to the audience. But Adora and the others have never seen that. From Adora's perspective, Catra was just about to take over Etheria, ready to destroy everything in her path, and only when Horde Prime showed up did she change her tune. None of the protagonists have any reason to believe that Catra has remorse, or guilt, or goodness in her. Glimmer gets the closest to seeing that side when Catra saves her, but does that make up for killing her mother? Or for sending Entrapta to die on Beast Island? For the complete destruction of Selenius? For turning on a portal that she knew would end up with the destruction of reality? Those are some big crimes. I would have preferred to see some episodes where she had to earn back trust by being good, much like Zuko did in Avatar: The Last Airbender. Building trust is hard. In fact, atoning for your past actions towards people you care about is one of the hardest things anyone of any age can do. You have to open yourself up to rejection you rightfully deserve while humbling yourself and admitting your own faults. It's a scary process, and one that should be explored more often in these redemption stories, rather than just slapping friendship over the past and calling it solved. But I guess love is all that it takes to save an entire universe, so what do I know? Let me start out by saying that I have nothing against Catra and Adora getting together in the end. I shipped it, and I am very happy it became canon. In fact, there's a lot about this ending that I really like. I really like that this story ends with the same relationships that started the story in the first place. The whole climax involves the whole of Etheria versus the culmination of the Horde, Shadow Weaver chooses to save her 2 daughters instead of ultimate power, and the final act that saves Etheria is Catra and Adora's bond. I love that kind of cyclical storytelling that reminds us that no matter how far the story has taken us from the Fright Zone oh so long ago, the relationships that began there remain important. Which is why, though I feel my issues with Adora and Catra's romance are valid, they are the most nitpicky. I don't think they spent enough time building Adora's love to justify this ending. While I'm aware that everyone wanted them to be together, myself included, there just wasn't enough pining from Adora. It was obvious Catra missed Adora, was constantly thinking about Adora, was basing her entire existence around Adora, but Adora only seemed to think about Catra when she was actively opposing her. Adora never did anything explicitly romantic with regards to Catra. Most of her concern can be explained with her general need to be a good person and her previous friendship with Catra. I know some overt displays of affection are cliché, but they also are what make you giggle like a schoolgirl with excitement. Would it have killed the writers to add a blush or two when they came into close contact? Or maybe a dream where they're together only for Adora to wake up and realize they're still on opposite sides. I don't know, just something that signaled reciprocated feelings from Adora before the final season. Like Scorpia. I am convinced Scorpia wanted to jump Catra's bones until season 4. Also, please extend that treatment to Glimmer and Bow because that confession came out of nowhere. Like, had anyone else assumed that Glimmer was full lesbian before then? Like, nothing wrong with her and Bow, I just did not see that coming. Which does bring me to another thing. I do want to praise the show for its handling of LGBT plus characters, at least from my perspective. The gay relationships are handled like straight relationships with no extra attention being drawn to them. I like that angle, that in this mystical world, that kind of love is just normal. No need to hide it or gawk at it. I think that's a very mature take that allows the gay characters to focus on their real personality traits rather than their relationship status. But ultimately, it's Adora and Catra's love that stops the heart of Etheria by allowing Adora to be She-Ra again so that she can withstand the overwhelming magical power. And that makes this ending pretty convenient. Like, honestly, had Hordak not killed Prime's main body, and had Prime not then teleported to Etheria, how was the rebellion gonna take him down? Sure, he wouldn't have been able to use the super death weapon of doom, but he had conquered plenty of planets without it. He still had an army of clones, and all of his space battleships. Yes, his weakness was magic, but Glimmer wasn't able to use magic outside of Etheria, so I'm assuming no other princess could either. He could just shoot the planet from afar. Only She-Ra could use her powers in space, but she would be dead. Really, the rebellion was lucky it happened the way it did, because otherwise they'd be toast. You know, just like in Season 1, if Friendship hadn't spontaneously given everyone superpowers to destroy the Horde. But love is just a flavor of friendship, so go ahead and just slap it on any problem you don't want to think too hard about. She-Ra is a good show that has stretches of time where it becomes a great one. What? But you just said all these negative things about it. I know what I said, and I stand by my opinions. But I will also say that while I think some things didn't work as well as I wanted, most of those issues come from a place of love rather than hate. I want the princesses to have more emotional arcs because I loved the emotional arcs of Adora and Catra. I want the story to cut out some of the filler because when it's focused on the main plot, the action and drama is some of the best I've seen. I want the answer to every problem to not be friendship because they've written characters that are too good for cop-out endings. Most of my criticisms come from seeing how great the show can be at times and the frustration that they don't always match that level of quality. But that doesn't make the show bad, just not perfect. It has great animation, dynamic imagery with cool transitions, tension, a good balance between mystery, intrigue, and action, fantastic voice acting, funny dialogue. Overall, it just has good production that makes even the dullest episodes watchable and even a bit enjoyable. I said at the beginning of this video that I was a complex person who had complex feelings. I love She-Ra when it's great, and I get more picky when it's not because I know it can be better. There are some shows where I don't care as much because I don't expect as much. And yeah, that's a bit unfair, but also I'm just some chick on the internet. It's not like my opinion is going to harm the show at all. I just want to express my feelings as to why She-Ra gets so close to being one of my favorite shows, only to fall a bit short. My name's Gale, and thank you so much for listening to another one of my rant videos. If you have something that you would like to say about maybe some of the points I made or about She-Ra the show herself, let me know down in the comments section down below. You can also leave recommendations for any other TV shows or media or anything that you would think would be interesting for me to either interact with or review or rant or whatever I decide to do with it. I will read those and I will take those into consideration. So again, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye! Hi there, it's the end of the video, my friend. Hit the bell if it was okay, I'm sure I'll make good content someday. I'll play some games or do some drawing, Pokemon and fights with darling, video essays and reviews. I couldn't do it without you, so thanks, like and subscribe.